right, welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. Today we're having our virtual lunchroom with Chris Manfredi. He is an Allstate agent out in Southold on Long Island. Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm great, Lauren. How are you doing?
Awesome. We're living the dream here in New York. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and why we're chatting here today?
Sure. I'd met you through a mutual friend when you guys had come downstate to do a distracted driving presentation. I'm an Allstate insurance agent for a little over 30 years. I'm a local EMT and a father of three.
Awesome. So you have a lot of different perspectives that we like to sort of pick the brain of when we're talking about traffic safety, specifically when we're talking about teens. So from the EMT perspective, can you tell us a little bit about your experience there? What do you see?
Sure. I've been in the fire service, a few different departments across Long Island for well over 30 years. I've been in the EMS division now well over 20 years. And I don't preach to or claim to the fact that I've seen it all, but we do get our fair share of things. We're a very transient area. We have a lot of high volume in the summer. Our traffic kind of doubles or triples during the summer months. We have a lot of tourists coming out to the East End, and we do have our fair share of calls.
Yeah, for sure. EMS, EMT, what's the difference?
Well, EMS, emergency medical services, and then inside that you have everybody from a standard helper, somebody that's part of the fire department, to a driver, a skilled driver, somebody that did have to pass some type of skills and competency test, to different designations that New York State gives us by taking schools, equivalent to college classes. So I would say the EMT level would be the basic, and then we have an EMT CC or critical care, and those people are a little bit more experienced, or not necessarily experienced. You get experience with the time, but they have a little bit more schooling and skills, so they can do things like IVs, give some medications. And then you have a paramedic, which is the equivalent of an associate's degree at a college. So it's about 2 years worth of schooling. An EMT, when I started, the class was about 4.5 months, and it's already up to between 6 and 8 month program. So they keep adding different things to us. Yeah, and New York State is weaning out the CC. So I think the intermediary is going to, our skills will move up. Paramedics will probably just keep learning more and more and more. But the EMT basic is no longer basic.
All right, good to know. So what do you think is the toughest part, or what would you say is the toughest part of the EMT EMS job?
Well, considering it is a part-time or a volunteer situation for myself and all of my co-Southold Fire Department members, is that it's just what it is. It's a part-time thing, and none of us are getting paid. We're all doing it because we truly love to do it. We want to help out our fellow citizens. But it's trying probably to balance that delicate fold between my family, my job, and dedicating volunteer hours, because it's hundreds of hours to get certified, and then it's equally as difficult and time consuming to keep it up. You have to remain current. You have to, I know we're not going to talk about COVID today, but over the COVID pandemic, in just a few months, our protocols probably at one point were changing daily. And, you have to keep up on it because you need to treat people with the most modern science that they're giving us.
Actually, you know what, that ties in really well to what we're going to talk about today. But I think we can't avoid talking about COVID right now. So that's just one more layer to the emergency response folks. We're worried about COVID, we're worried about responding to those calls, but we're also worried about responding to those traffic safety calls that are the big issue in SADD world right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about those difficult traffic related calls that maybe you or colleagues have attended to?
Sure. Again, in my world of insurance, I insure a lot of people anywhere in New York State, but most of my concentration is down here in the North Fork, Eastern Suffolk area. And the fortunate thing is that the people that I see a lot of times in vehicle crashes are people that I might know or people that I actually insure. So sometimes it's very difficult, even if it's not a familiar face, everybody's still treated the same, given the, best medical care that we can give them.
Yeah, for sure. That has to be really tough, especially in smaller communities where you sort of know everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you think being a part of EMS helps you in your day-to-day business as an Allstate agent?
Well, I get to see both perspectives. Okay. When I go to an accident, I see what happens to people. I see what happens to the vehicles that they're driving. I see the property damage and the cost of things. If a helicopter lands and takes you to a facility nearby, because that's where you need to go, that's thousands of dollars. So on the other side of it, as an insurance agent, it really makes me, take a different perspective. It's not just to sell a policy. I need to make sure that people are properly covered. The last thing you want to have is a giant deductible or a hole in your policy where, at the time of loss, you say to me, "What do you mean I'm not covered for that?" That would be the worst time to learn that your insurance is not adequate. So I see it from both perspectives. The carnage and the damage and the cost, and then on the other side of it, I hopefully can fill those gaps for students and their parents.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic, can you tell us a little bit more about being an agent? How'd you get into it, and tell us about it?
Many years ago, I graduated college. I was a high school science teacher. I used to teach biology, chemistry, and general science and phys ed. And I was a bartender out east at a poolside marina bar. And I met a couple of guys that were Allstate insurance agents, and they said, "Have I got an idea for you?" And, I haven't looked back. So my wife and I had just gotten married. We were both going to be school teachers, and guess what? I'd be retired right now. But so is the wonderful world of insurance, and I haven't looked back.
Hey, you know what? It'll sustain you forever. So can you tell us a little bit about what Allstate offers for teens and parents to ensure that they're driving safe? We know all of our insurance companies have something to incentivize stuff. So
Absolutely. Insurance, as you know, it covers people, it covers property. Whoop, did I lose you?
no, you're fine.
I just don't have a screen anymore. Okay, there I am.
Oh,
Mine went blank, so I guess it must have just timed out. I apologize. Okay, so the question was, what does Allstate do? And basically, most insurance companies are a profit business. Okay, so when people pay money and the insurance company doesn't have to pay out for them, they make money, and it's how their stocks are driven and people invest and things like that. So the better drivers that a company has, the more lucrative it is to the company. I don't want to give away their big secret, but it's a business.
Sure.
So encouraging people to be good drivers is something that they truly stand behind. And in that case, they do spend millions of dollars on, teen awareness and distracted driving presentations and things like that to encourage people to be safe drivers. So our policies are geared towards discounts that people would receive for being a good driver, for being a careful driver. Allstate has a Teen Smart discount. So there's actually a course that they can take online. It's about 5 to 6 hours, and it encourages kids to drive safely, and in turn it gives them a discount on the insurance. Everybody, I hope, is aware of defensive driver. New York State DMV recognizes a 6-hour point and insurance reduction class, and as an instructor for that too, another hat that we wear, we teach defensive driver classes. But what's funny is most of the people that take those classes are not necessarily the ones that need to get their behaviors changed. It's the ones that are really driving well and doing the things that they're supposed to, and they're just saying, well, is there a way that I can save more money? So the defensive driver is another way that they do it. The safe driver discounts, Allstate, I'm sure you've seen advertisement. I know State Farm, and this is not an Allstate pitch necessarily, but State Farm does it, Progressive does it. But they're, these telematics now, or telematics, I should say, they plug into the car and they actually, monitor your driving behavior. And a lot of things that they look for are the things that discourage good driving. Would be people that hard brake, people that have excessive speed, people that drive overnight. Now, even as so the 11 to 7, those kind of witching hours, and it's not necessarily meaning that it's always bad behavior. Because personally, my DriveWise says, hey, you're not doing well because you get up in the middle of the night and go to emergency calls. So it thinks at times that I'm somebody that drives all the time overnight, but you take the good with the bad. So those are some of the discounts that they do.
Absolutely, and that's awesome. And that's a really good distinction too, right? So especially with our younger teens, they shouldn't be driving at night because of our graduated driver's licensing laws, but we'll get to that in a minute. But we talk a lot about drowsy driving and avoiding those hours when you'd normally be asleep, sometime between midnight, 6 a.m., when there's a high incidence of crash rates because we're normally sleeping. We could be falling asleep at the wheel. So that makes sense that there's incentives for not driving during that time.
Absolutely.
Could you kind of give us an idea of, we have a lot of parents that follow us, a lot of teens that follow us. Could you give us an idea of what parents and teens should really be aware of when they're looking for a policy for themselves or their teens?
Okay. Now, I have a very basic bar graph. You ready for this?
Ooh.
It basically is telling you that things can only get better. So right now, the 16 to 19-year-old group is the most hard hit when it comes to car insurance. So there's no real way around it. All insurance companies, again, are a business-minded profession. They use statistics for all of their formulas and pricing. So in essence, the highest rated group would be the 16 to 20-year-olds, and for good reason. As we all know, what they lack is that experience, and it's not anything that they can do to fast forward it. You know, driving is a privilege. It's not a right. It would be really scary if kids woke up on their 16th birthday and just went, keys, you know, it would be really scary. So graduated licensing, whether or not we cover it now, it's something that's been developed to say, hey, let's put some time behind the wheel. For years, pilots had to, they still do have to log hours. You want to be a boat captain, you have to log hours with somebody that's a professional and can sign off and say, yes, you know, you're a good driver. So when they're starting to shop, get ready. Most, I would suggest, should sit, because especially if you have a young male, their rates are going to be the highest. And unfortunately, I'm doing this many years, they're right. The teen male pays the highest rate. If you were to compare a male and a female, same age, same car, same area, they're going to pay the higher rate. There's very few things that are in the control of the student. And I don't mean to call them a victim of circumstance, but their age, where they live, and how long they've been driving. New York State says at 16, you can get your permit. That's the soonest. I don't care if you're the valedictorian and you could have passed the test at 11. You have to wait till you're 16, right? And that's when your clock starts to tick. And the experience factor is really something that hurts people, with the sense that most people that are newly licensed, whether you lived in Manhattan and you're 65 years old now, and now you moved out here, but you never had a driver's license, you get surcharged as an inexperienced operator. And they surcharge you for a minimum of 3 years. And it's those 3 years that you really need that clock to tick. So I would suggest to anybody that is ever thinking about driving, get your license, get it sooner than later, because you're still going to be surcharged. But if you're looking for cars and you're shop around, I would tell you to do business with somebody that your parents trust, do business with somebody that your friends trust. And if you see these ads, and everybody gets taken in by ads every once in a while, no charge for tickets, no charge, new drivers, we love you.
Sure.
They do. Is high. So be smart. You know, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And again, I would only suggest anybody's welcome to call us at any time, obviously, but, you know, shop locally, find somebody that your parents use, somebody that your friends use, and you trust.
Yeah, so really the myth is true, right? So male drivers are going to be a little bit pricier based on data. You know, the companies are working in based on data.
Almost 2 times that.
Yeah, they look at crash rates. They know that male teens tend to have a higher crash rate than female teens. So it makes sense. And there's really no way to avoid it.
You can't. You got to bite the bullet. And you know, if you wanted to get specific about rates and things like that, I would tell parents, you know, every kid, and I was there one time when I was 16 and I wanted that new truck, or you need to start out basic. Statistically, the chances of an accident, or the probabilities, I should say, is 1. It's going to happen. Everybody is going to crash in their lifetime. It's unfortunate, and I hope everybody just has a little mailbox or dings a fender on a shopping cart. But there will be people that have horrific accidents, and we know those statistics too. But the probability is 1. You need to start out with a car that not required loans and leases, because the rates, you're going to be buying that car over and over and over again with the annual premiums. And I really never suggest to anybody to start out with a brand new car, especially for a young driver.
And is that not also going to raise your premium, a newer car versus an older car that is equally as safe?
Absolutely. When I go into the driver's ed classes, there's a couple of things that I tell kids to look for. I'll never share and say, okay, you should buy this kind of car, because I always felt that cars reflect people's personalities. You know, you might only drive Fords and somebody might only drive Chevys and pickup trucks or whatever it might be. But the insurance industry, regardless of the type of car, and I don't mean to say in all situations. I mean, if it's a turbo, a super souped up car, there might be some surcharges. But for the round the town car that most people or most of these students are going to get, if you can find a car, and the longer I do this, the more I keep saying to myself, boy, you know, they take for granted some of the safety features that cars have. You know, seatbelts developed in 1964. All right, no longer, or would a company say, okay, we're going to give you a discount because your car has seatbelts, because it's required. Right. But things still like airbags, anti-lock brakes, daytime running lights, these are all features that if I was to line your premium up and somebody, your girlfriend or somebody's age appropriate, the same year, same make, same model, neighborhood that they live in, everything about them is the same. If one of their cars had safety features and the other didn't, their premium would be lower. So it's, again, I don't really preach a type of vehicle. Get whatever you want, but when you look for them, please look for things that have dual side airbags. One, they're going to keep you safer, but the insurance industry says in turn, you know, because these cars are safer, you have less chance of personal injury. We're going to share that with you in the premium. So your cost for personal injury would be a little less. Anti-lock brakes, you have less chance of hitting something. So therefore, you're going to get a discount. Daytime running lights, you become more visible to other drivers. So hence, you know, you're going to look to save some money. So when you find these safety features, the insurance industry will reflect your rate with that.
Awesome. We all are looking for those discounts still.
And that goes with anybody, you know, whatever age. I know we're specifically honing in on the teen, because obviously their premium's the highest, as I shared with you. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I promise them it's going to go down over time as long as they remain good drivers.
And that's just it, right? So you can avoid this higher premium situation for long term if you're a good driver, if you follow safety protocols, follow speed limits, making sure that you're doing your best not to be in a crash.
Correct. Crashes and tickets alone. You look at 20% surcharges. If somebody's paying $1,000 this year and they decide to make a right on red when they weren't supposed to, you're looking at $1,200 premium next year, plus the fine, plus the points on your license, you know, so all of these things, you know, add up.
For sure. So could you give us a little idea of what, from the insurance perspective or the MS perspective, both, what happens after a crash, particularly for teens? You know, what are we looking at?
Okay. Well, obviously safety, I would say from any perspective, whether I'm the parent hat on, my Allstate agent, or the EMS, you need to be safe. If you're in an accident and you can leave the car exactly where the accident occurred, then do it. Take a picture. Obviously your safety's first. So if you need medical attention, that supersedes everything. So you need to go to the hospital. Okay. The adrenaline's running. So maybe what you don't feel now, you may feel a couple hours from then. So just, you know, be ready for that. But again, if you know, an accident occurs, I would suggest, if you could, to leave the vehicles in the position that they occurred. This would give the police officer the best perspective as to really what happened, because there's always going to be two sides to every story, you know. So if the cars are left the way they were, it's pretty evident the way maybe something occurred, and that could mean that you might be at fault for it too, you know. But my next thing I would tell you, aside from your safety, if you had to move the cars, you'd move them, but call the police. And the reason I say that is because in my experience, too often people downplay. Again, let's not talk about a horrible accident, just something minor. You know, people downplay the accident and say, "Oh, don't worry, it's, you know, I can buff that out." Everybody can buff something out. You know,
we all become mechanics.
You know, well, that's only going to be $100, or I'll give you $100 for this. But I would tell people to call the police. And the reason being is that they're going to gather your driver's license and make sure it's current. They're going to gather your insurance card and make sure that it's current. They're going to, you know, check the vehicle to the registration, to the insurance, and make sure everything's on the up and up. I've had, you know, horrible stories where people have come in with a business card and said, "Here, give this guy a call. He said he's going to take care of everything. You know, he doesn't want to go through the insurance," or this or that. And you know the end of that story is you call and that person doesn't exist, or, you know, so there's a lot of scams that goes on. So I would say call the police just for the gathering of the correct information. And then when it comes to the actual claim, if you're going to put a claim in, because there are, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but there's certain situations where you have to call the police. If anybody's injured, if damage over $1,000, the suspicion is that you should call the police. DMV requires a form called an MV 104, which looks like the MV 104A that a police officer would give you. And it's kind of, almost like a carbon copy. I know I'm saying carbon. Everybody doesn't even know what I'm talking about. It's almost laid one on top of the other. They would almost look the same.
Scan, kids.
The difference being is that the MV 104 that you or I complete for DMV it says your description. So it's what you feel happened at the accident, as opposed to, just vehicle 1 did this, vehicle 2 did this. So that information becomes important. You call your agent or 800 number or whatever company you're dealing with and speak to them first about it, because you have choices. You don't necessarily have to get your insurance involved if certain circumstances apply. There's a long-winded DMV rule called comparative negligence, okay, which in some cases is anyone's best friend or their worst enemy. And the idea behind comparative negligence is that even if you had the right of way to begin with, it doesn't necessarily mean it's yours. If somebody tries to take the right of way away from you, and in doing so, you cause or contribute to an accident, you can be found partially responsible in a court of law. So it's a lot of words. What the heck does it mean? It means that
put your legal hat on.
Right. It just means that you might have been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And now, even though you're adamant, I didn't cause this, I didn't do this, New York State has those boundaries to say, well, you were here, this person was here, you may, or you should have done this, and you could be found partially responsible. So discussing this with your agent, if you have somebody that you trust that you could talk to, they may tell you, if you hit in rear or hit while parked, it's 100% the other person. So why would I get your company involved when I know in those circumstances that I can get everything taken care of? Now you have no blemishes on your driving record. You have no issues because somebody paid 100%. So if that accident ever came up, if you went for insurance and somebody said, oh, it looks here on March 10th, you had a car accident. Yes, but look, I have 100% check or a piece of paper that says 100% accepted by other company. That helps you. That's not going to be held against you, So the comparative negligence law, again, can be your best friend, can be your worst enemy. Talk to your agent so they know how best to guide you. And a lot of times you need to put the policy into play just to protect you in case there is a lawsuit. And like I said, people say a lot of things at a scene. It's really important to gather the information. Police will come. They're going to prioritize things. Obviously, if you said, it's really super minor, nobody was hurt, damage is minor, and it's July 4th weekend in your area, they might not rush there. But they will come, if it's in the middle of Manhattan, maybe things might be a little different. I'm not knocking this, but they're very busy. But they're obligated under certain circumstances to come. Don't make up circumstances. Don't lie. Don't say somebody was hurt just to get them there. You don't ever want to do anything like that. But the idea is, one other thing that is witnesses. If something happens, traffic light, you and I have a traffic light accident. You're going through and I'm trying to go through the opposite direction, not opposite, but perpendicular to you. And we collide. When the policeman says to you, what color was your light? You're going to say green, right? And I'm going to say green.
I would hope.
But the chances of 2 green lights in opposite directions are pretty slim. So it's a he said, she said thing. So that's where that comparative negligence comes in. Where you struck me or I struck you can kind of determine, well, it's 50-50, 70-30, 80-20. But if you had a person that was on a bicycle and said, wow, that lady just went through the red light, and you get their name and telephone number on a police report, that's golden. The unfortunate thing is if you're driving a 12-passenger van and all 11 of your passengers say the light was green, for you, doesn't hold up. You need that outside person that doesn't have anything to gain or lose from the situation. So gathering witnesses is always wise too.
Love that. And I think that's really important, especially for our teens and new drivers. They get very concerned behind the wheel to begin with. And then if they have some sort of crash or any kind of minor incident, they're immediately scared. They don't know what to do. So it's really important to, stay calm, make sure that you contact your agent. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen. Make sure you contact the policyholder if you're not the policyholder, right? Because your teens can be under parents, correct? That's still a thing?
Yep.
and making sure that we're contacting those adults that we trust, maybe putting something in place ahead of time before we even start driving that says, no matter what the case, I'll come and get you. I will be understanding. We'll talk about it later. That kind of a situation with you and that adult, because it's really important to make sure that you follow all these steps and you don't find yourself in a situation where you have a business card that goes nowhere.
There you go. And as an agent, I can tell you that most companies are going to support any driver by giving them, little pamphlets, and the pamphlet can have on it accident descriptions. Everybody has a cell phone now. So take a picture of driver's license, take a picture of license plates, registrations, anything that you feel is relevant. The person, if it's something that's okay to do. I'm not looking for you to get confrontational with anybody, but, pictures speak 1,000 words. So this is what happened. Look at the damage. How can they now say that the whole door is gone when I took a picture at the scene? Look, I only scuffed this, or maybe you didn't do anything and you took a picture of the area that they're claiming, because, it's just a way to protect yourself. And again, everybody's got a cell phone now. You can make a quick note, the time, the date, the place, if it's impossible to call the police or for whatever reason, they're not able to come.
Actually, that just made me think of something. I know you all have an app. Isn't there a way you can use the app to do these things?
Allstate has a good plug.
Just happen to be a client.
Allstate has an amazing app on it, everything from your policy to getting ID cards to making payments. But they also now are allowing you to take actual pictures of the car, the damage, send them in. If you have a collision on the car, we'll have an adjuster adjust it. And if it's okay with you, on your debit card, credit card, they send the money. It's really amazing. I mean, I've been around this so long, from the paper check that took 2 weeks to wait that maybe took a week, to now stuff is in hours, sometimes, a few days to hours. So it's really amazing that the distance that they come, the money that they put into this, and it's all to better the service. It's unfortunate that, you don't necessarily get that face to face, where the adjuster would come and they're, doing their thing. But if for some reason the claim goes to an adjuster, and let's pretend they say it's $200, right? And then they go to the body shop, and the body shop says, I can't fix it for $200. I need $300. Then the body shop, their profession, they put in writing what it is they need, and the supplement goes in, and they fight about it there. But it's really not for the policyholder to worry about. You just always have to worry about your deductible, whatever that out-of-pocket might be.
So you just reminded me a whole bunch of new things that I need to ask you now. So you mentioned before being able to look at your cards, your insurance cards. What are these magical insurance cards? What do they do? And what do we need to have with us when we're driving? What's important to make sure we keep on us?
Very good.
Or in the glove.
Okay. So the glove box, you want to have things in there. Like I said, maybe that little folder that had the pertinent information when involved in an accident. It's going to have hopefully your agent's number on there, or the contact for the claims department. You're going to want to have a pen. All right. You're going to want to have your cell phone, more than likely to do those photos we talked about. But the ID cards, if you're pulled over, the police pull you over for reason A, reason B, whatever it might be, or because of an accident, you're going to have to show a current insurance ID card. And they all now have these barcodes on them. So they're able to scan them. In Allstate's world, we have a 6-month ID card. There are some insurance companies that still do a 1 year. So you want to make sure that in the 6 months in the year that you're not driving around with, 2012 ID cards in the car. You want to have something that's current. You want to have a copy of your registration, a copy of your driver's license, because all of these are eligible for tickets if you didn't present them. You can get a ticket for driving without a license, driving without insurance, driving without, and some police officers will work with you. You'll get the ticket if on your way to the beach and you just had your swim stuff on and you didn't have your credentials. You present them at court, but now you're taking a day off from. All these things are going to come into play. So it's just the pertinent documents would be your insurance card, your driver's license, and your registration. And then any pertinent numbers. Roadside assistance, I know, is a big deal. Some policies include it. Others people have AAA, Allstate Roadside. So these are all 800 numbers that wherever you are, you give a call, and somebody will change a flat. Somebody will put some gas in your car. Somebody will just help you get from point A to point B because your car is disabled. So they're really good things to have. They're not a lot of money in perspective of if it. I'm not saying everybody should use it, but if you use it one time a year, it kind of pays for itself. Don't use it too many times because they're not going to want you as a customer anymore. But if it is something where you have maybe an older car or it's really cold out and you just don't want to change that tire, somebody will come and do it for you. Or jump the car. Yeah.
Jump your car. Yep, absolutely. In our nice colder climates we have upstate here. I think the bottom line is it's not the end of the world, right? So something could happen as long as you are physically okay and the people around you are physically okay. You make sure everyone's all right. You know, we can figure out the details. It's not the end of the world. You mentioned before too this word deductible. What does that mean?
Well, a deductible would be the portion of the loss that you're willing to be responsible for. So in turn, the higher the deductible, the meaning more you would be willing to pay, the lower the premium would be. So deductibles used to, when I first started, people drove around with $100 deductible. Some drove around, I still have some clients who insist, but they drive around with $50 deductibles because they don't want to ever have to take a $100 bill or $500 out of their checking account. They just want to pay their slight deductible. But in turn, their premiums are much higher. So if somebody has a $100 deductible, I can't rattle off a premium, but it would be X amount of dollars. If they had a 200, 500, 1,000, as we go up in deductible, the premium would in turn go down. And a lot of times the math works out that if you were to have a $200 deductible and move it to a 5, you probably will save at least $100, $150. So over the course of 2 or 3 years of no claims, you've saved the difference between the 2 and the 500. So the money's better in your pocket. Stay safe, try not to hit anything, and you'll never have to come up with a deductible. But back to what I shared with you before, where if it was somebody else's fault, if it's all your fault, you're going to pay out of pocket. If it's somebody else's fault and that comparative negligence, let's say it goes 80-20 and you're only found 20% at fault, you'll pay your deductible. Let's pretend it's 500. And some weeks, months after, the other company will acknowledge they're 80% at fault and you'll get $400 of that $500 back. So that's where comparative negligence works to your benefit. But if it's the other way, then you just wouldn't get any little to no money back.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about graduated driver's licenses, and we've talked about that a couple of times here on our virtual programming, but how does that differ now? Does that change in the insurance world as you go through your GDL with premiums and stuff? Okay.
Graduated licensing, I'm going to say has been around for at least, what do we figure? In the 80s, I think it started. No. In the early 97, I think it is when it came about. So back in my day when we took the,
about 10, 15 years. Yeah, usually.
All right. So back when we took our driver's license, you literally could go and take your permit test and walk over and schedule a road test. There was really no lag time. But now, as you're aware, it's a minimum of 6 months. It's a minimum of time. In that time, I would highly recommend, and again, I have nothing to gain or lose from it, if you could take a driver's ed class or a defensive driver class, because both of those are going to, when you go into the insurance world, it's going to lower your premiums. And it's going to give you those basic skills of safe driving. The driver's ed teaches the skilled people that have gone to college for these classes. They'll teach you to change a flat tire. They'll teach you, some things to do if you're have the misfortune of an accident. But the graduated licensing, statistically, it's, I'm reading it now, but it saves between 10 to 30% of teen crashes. Mm-hmm. I should say, I take that back. It's reduced teen crashes by 10 to 30% because it's just giving you a little bit more experience. Again, back to the driver's ed classes. I'll go in there in the summer. A lot of kids take the class in the summer. Mm-hmm. When do you learn that snow is slippery? When do you learn all about black ice? When do you learn about the fall leaves and the wet ground? It's unfortunate, but it's not until you hit black ice or it's not until you hydroplane that you're like, oh my goodness, this is
what that was.
They can't prepare you for that if you're taking a class in July. So this graduated licensing covers 6 months of your life and somebody next to you driving that has some experience built in to give you some of the skills to keep you safe. But the graduated licensing definitely, and I'm glad that I found the statistic because for the longest time I was wondering, was it really helping? And obviously it is.
It really is. And a lot of our students look at us and go, well, it's just punishment. You're just trying to stop us from driving. But no, we're really not. From many different perspectives, we're just trying to keep you all more safe and make sure that you're learning those things that you need to learn to be good drivers.
We've all been there. We've all, it's been a while since I'm 16, 17, 18. But I remember back then, you couldn't tell me I wasn't a good driver. In my head, but I know that over time, you learn things that you just can't prepare yourself for, even in just those 6 months.
Absolutely. And that's the thing too, even your parents or your supervising adults or you and I or whoever's on the road right now, we may have our licenses for many years, but we don't know everything. And we haven't seen everything either. So we're all going to be learning in some respect every day that we're on the road. So I don't want to take up the rest of your day here, but I know you're an Allstate agent, you're an EMS, apparently you're also a teacher and a lawyer, but you're also a parent. And you've taught your own teenagers how to drive. So is there anything that you can tell our parents that may be watching this, some pointers that you can give, perspectives on good teaching practices?
Well, parents and family members or the people that are allowed to teach the kids to drive would be the parental legal guardian, a licensed parental legal guardian. And you have to know that you're the #1 influence on a teen driver. All of those years that they were sitting in a car seat maybe and watching you, and these habits and behaviors that we develop over the year, good and bad, you have to know when you believe that you are the best or you're not the best person to teach your child to drive. Okay. We've all developed some of our own good and bad habits. And it's these habits that we do day in and day out that eventually have a consequence. If we're somebody that speeds all the time, something's going to happen. If we're somebody that doesn't wear our seatbelt all the time, when something happens, we're going to get hurt a lot worse than people that wear them consistently. So these good behaviors, these good habits that we develop, our kids are watching. And I used to love riding in the car with the kids after they had an event with the local police. I'm trying to remember the acronym that the police do. They do the drugs and they do the seatbelt and they do not SADD, but it's.
You're not talking about DARE.
DARE, there you go. And they would say, before you even started the car, one of the kids would say, "Daddy, put your seatbelt on." It's just because they're learning and they're looking around and they're not there to point out your flaws, but they definitely are there to say, hey, I learned this today. This is going to help us. But we have to realize that we're the #1 influence on them. So prior to them driving and the whole time that you're teaching them to drive, you need to reflect good behavior, good habits. And if you're not that person to do it, you have to accept it. And you need to get them a good, skilled driver. Maybe it might not be you. Maybe it might be your spouse. Maybe it might be a driving school instructor, not necessarily a driver's ed instructor, but somebody that professionally does this just for a couple hours so that your student gets really the best, most modern way to drive.
I will also tack on to that one. If you're not particularly the most understanding human, or I had a very opposite ends of the spectrum type of parents, one that would be very nervous and one that wasn't. So, find out what's better for your teen and what they react to better and how they're learning better. And that's going to help them become better drivers, or it's going to make them more frustrated.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you don't want it to be, anything where you guys are fighting about it. You want them to be safe. They have to understand that that's all this is about, is to keep them safe. And, like you said, if you're not the best one there, if you're going to be confrontational or shouting or, just changing the dynamic of the car, then, you might not be the best person to be in that passenger seat.
Oh, yeah. Not everyone can be a teacher, and that's okay.
The driver's ed and the professional instructors usually have their own brake pedal, which is something that you or I did not have on the passenger side.
Yes. So I thank you so much for being here. We learned so much today. I'm really thankful. We don't really get to have these kind of in-depth conversations on so many of these different topics. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Some last minute wisdom?
I just think, the statistic where, auto-related accidents are like the #8 cause of death globally, but it's the #1 cause of death for anybody 5 to 24, 25 years old. It's a horrible, horrible statistic. So many kids, 16, 16 every day just because of auto-related accidents. And it's not necessarily, drugs and alcohol. It's these new things too that we have, the distractions, these telephones, the passenger, it's not enough to just be a good driver. You also need to be a good passenger. And teens, you know, they listen to their parents at certain points in their lives. They listen to their friends at certain points in their lives. So being good role models in the car too, not taking your driver away. They're in charge. You know, anything they say should go. If they say everybody seatbelt, because you know, there's rollover simulators which show the guy in the back seat without his seatbelt's coming in the front seat. So he becomes part of your world too. So they all need to be seatbelted in. The driver's in charge. Minimize the distractions. Don't add any stress to the driver, you know, and be that second set of eyes. You know, you pay attention to the road, to the map, to the cell phone that might be ringing, just to let the driver drive. So often, it's unfortunate, but a lot of the accidents that we respond to is due to distracted driving. You know, people do fall asleep. People do, you know, medicate themselves. People do alcohol things to minimize their skills. But a lot of times it's just distracted driving. That's a huge percentage. It's somewhere like 50% of all accidents just due to distracted driving. Driving by itself is multitasking. You don't need to add things to it. You know what I mean? You drive. You got to look at the road. You got to look at the map. You got to look at the speed. You got to look at around. You got to be wary of other people. You know, the people in your car, the people outside the road, your car itself, you know, is it in good working condition? But all of those things together, and now you throw in a cell phone, now you're throwing eating a bagel on your way to school because you're late. Now you're trying to tie your shoes in the car, you know, home office.
Finish your homework.
Finish your homework, putting makeup on. We've all seen it. You know, I'm stuck in rush hour traffic many years, people reading books, reading newspapers. There's so many things people do in their car.
Or watching Netflix.
Netflix. But driving, as I said before, is a multitask just by itself. Just drive and be safe, you know? For
sure. Thank you so much. We so appreciate it. How can we get in touch with you if we need to?
I'm Allstate Insurance, Chris Manfredi, Manfredi@allstate.com, 631-765-4666. I'm in the phone book. I'm everywhere.
Dear Chris, what's a phone book?
Oh, you know what I mean. The Google box thing they got up there. So
make sure you do the Google thing, kids.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate it.
I commend SADD. They've come such a long way. I know they started many, many years ago with one designated idea behind, and you guys have branched out into multiple things. And getting kids involved is awesome, and getting kids to be the director of their own fate and helping other kids, I think that's awesome. Good for you guys.
Thank you. We like it.
Yes.
It works. And that's the bonus.
My pleasure. And hopefully you can buy some things with our mini grant that we offered you. So.
We hope to. Well, thank you so much. And New York SADD, if you need anything, you can DM us on social. You can get at Chris. I will put up his information later too. Enjoy your days.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.